Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 8 of the Crypto Hipsters Curtain Calls. This episode, The Ghost in You, Seeing Yourself Through the Eyes of Decentralized AI, is a compilation of 4 podcasts from seasons 6 through 8, actually 2 from season 8, 2 from season 7. The Crypto Hipsters Curtain Calls are a compilation of all my podcasts through season 6 through 8. About 67 episodes, and this is episode 8, and had amazing conversations. This episode features 4 guests. First is Paulius Stankevicius, who was my 300th guest back in February 2024. We talk about, he wrote a book on AI. He had a conversation with AI, and that's the name of the book, is Conversation with AI. And he had an amazing conversation with ChatGPT. Anyway, the title of our podcast was A Vision for Change Through the Eyes of AI. So check that out. On its own merit, it's a wonderful conversation. The second guest of this compilation is Dr. Alok Aggarwal. He's been in AI for a long time. He's the founder of Scry AI, helped develop Watson, helped develop many innovations in the area of AI. And our conversation was basically entitled 100 Years of Artificial Intelligence and Its Future with the Intersection of Blockchain Technology. Check that out. The third guest, and this interview was from season 8, so is the next one, Sean Wren, who is the CEO and co-founder of, let me get this right, Sahara AI. Can't beat that. And the title of the podcast was Why We Should Create a Collaborative AI-Powered Blockchain Economy That Benefits Everyone. And that was the topic of our conversation, and how AI can be used to help everyone. And last but not least was my second interview in May 2025 with Justin Banon, founder of Boson Protocol and founder of Boson Metasystem. We'll talk about the Dulcilorian, discovering the Dulcilorian, which is an AI agent uniquely suited to a platform rebellion. And check out what the Dulcilorian is. They bought a suit, a very famous one, in Europe, and it was an amazing conversation. If you didn't see the original, check that one out. So this compilation covers those 4 guest clips from those interviews. And check it out, and I'll see you at the end.
2008, I was at AIG. We had this financial meltdown, implosion. I came back from my honeymoon and almost without a job. People were picketing in the streets, and that's when Bitcoin started, right? So you had financial unrest. You had Bitcoin in the attempt to create trust. In the past few years, you've had a lot of money printing. You've had this AI created so that because there was a lack of trust. How do you parallel the advent of Bitcoin and its path to now with AI's advent and its path going forward? Do you see parallels? Do you see, how the lessons that we learned from Bitcoin be able to apply to AI for the future?
I think from, very easy perspective, I would say that there's so much things happening right now on even like a daily basis. Whatever happened like 10 years ago, people don't even think about it. Yes, they do think about it when they have to do some historic equations and say like, okay, this happened there, and it will happen here. But yeah, of course, the money thing, the printing and everything, and then the fact that, Bitcoin, for example, is a set amount. I was very much in crypto, like a believer, like big time, I'm not a believer, but like understanding the technology and believing that, okay, probably gonna go. But I do have some questions from maybe over the last several months, or like since somewhere mid last year, I've been starting having these second thoughts about like Bitcoin in general. Um, there's a lot of questions that we don't know, and things a bit weird, and I think there's like way a lot of questions that we don't know. And now with all these ETFs, and actually, like, a couple years ago, for example, I think banks were like, this is bad, this is bad. Then they're saying this is good with all the ETFs. But then there's still somebody like respected in the industry, they're still saying this is bad. So the question is that is the ETF the reason for sort of like maybe wait for the banks to make the money, not necessarily for the people? Maybe just something temporal, I don't know. But my sort of like, I think like it's like 50-50, like it's kind of like very weird times. Very weird times, and the volatility is like also very weird and strange. And it does not always correlate with like actual US markets. Before it correlated a lot. Now it's like kind of like not always correlates, so it's like difficult to understand what's actually happening. And of course, when you don't understand, then you don't want to like gamble or invest. The only investing idea people have is that yes, 5 years, 10 years, Bitcoin 1 million. Based on what? Okay. Before I was thinking like, yeah, it can be true, But now I'm thinking like it can still be true, but it can also be not true. And the only thing what's in my mind is that I saw this table from some 1875 or something somebody put online, I think LinkedIn or something. There was a financial table that every 6 or 12 years there's a financial crisis or whatever, and it was like from this is like from 1870 something, and then it was mentioned about 1990 something when there was some crash. Then there was the 2008 crash, then also 2013 was mentioned, and this 2020 COVID. And then the next thing is that I remember very well. I have a screenshot of my phone. It's like going up until 2026 and then going down until 2032 or something like that, or 20 something like about 2030 something. So now, but if you look about it, you think about it, everything is very much overpriced. Housing is like not even talk about it. I think like maybe for the next 2 years there might be this kind of like sort of like a fake pump, and then it's just going to collapse. I think some people say it like this. And then I think because anyways, the US stock market is like, I think it's way too much. I mean, like Europe is completely broken, and like people are really like job market is dead, everything is dead, but the stock market still is very high, and it just makes no sense. It just makes no sense, and I think like the balance is broken, but with all the printing, with all the manipulations, governments are trying to keep positive as much as possible, but with the fake positivity, you cannot maintain long. So obviously it's gonna go for some rebalancing.
So I started using AI Watson in 2017, and I stopped a couple of years later, right? People think that was an advancement, but now we have come so far. So you said also that AI has been around for 100 years, or since 1930s, and you wrote a book.
1950s, yeah. It'll be 100 in 2050. If the first article or research paper on AI came in 1950.
Great. So you wrote a book called Fourth Industrial Revolution and 100 Years of AI. So why is that book now more important than ever to read, and what takeaways will people get from reading it?
Yeah, so many things. So first chapter, in my view, is the most important one because I'm setting up a framework that what are industrial revolutions, first of all. I mean, we say we are in the fourth industrial revolution. Why it's not the fifth? Why it's not the third? Why it's not the seventh? And I give 8 characteristics of industrial revolutions that we are currently seeing in the fourth one also, that have been in the past. One characteristic, for example, is that every revolution, industrial revolution, has many inventions, not one or two, but many inventions that happen. Right now, we have gene editing, we have blockchain, you were talking about crypto, you have blockchain, you have Internet of Things, you have, of course, AI, you have data, lot of data which has its own inventions, you have robotics and so on. And in the past, previous invention, second industrial revolutions, you had motors, you had automobiles and so on and so forth. We can go on and on. So there are a lot of inventions. The second one is that one of the inventions actually creates an infrastructure for the society. For example, in the first one, the infrastructure was water and steam works. So you had water canals which were created by the British, and steam was created automatically. I mean, not automatically, but using coal and so on, because it is going to be used in steam engines or in textiles. So the second revolution had electricity as the infrastructure. Edison created first electric plant. The third one had broadband and wireless, basically electronic communication as the. Now we will have data as the infrastructure, because without data there is no AI. So you need data as an infrastructure. So second point that I'm trying to make is that we have to look at data as something which is going to be very important from an infrastructure perspective. The third characteristic is that every industrial revolution had one invention which became pervasive. In the first one, it was the steam engines. Steam engines began to be used in boats, in locomotives or trains, in textiles, and so on. In the second one, it was electric motor. In fact, there were two things which became pervasive. Automobiles and electric motors became pervasive. Electric motors, there are 3,500 different types of electric motors today. Probably you and I, wherever we are sitting, we have a few electric motors running, we don't even know that they're running. The third one had CPUs, or small central processing units, which are in our smartphones, which are in refrigerators, washing machines today, and so on. In the fourth one, it will be AI systems, which will be similarly pervasive and ubiquitous. On the website, we are putting 1,080 use cases where AI is being used already. And it's not all GPTs. In fact, GPTs and LLMs is only 5% of what we are showing there. Most of it is actually different kind of machine learning systems, support vector machines, and regression analysis, and so on and so forth. So I give 5 other characteristics without going into detail, but it's important to understand that what has happened in the past.
How can decentralized infrastructure reduce the dependency upon them? How do we do like a Teddy Roosevelt kind of trust buster, but on data monopolies?
I mean, that's a hard question. I honestly don't think we have a good solutions to turning these centralized players into more decentralized ones. So our thinking is especially representing Sahara AI, is more like we have to just do this from scratch in a totally different method, right? Let me break this down, right? So I think the winning model for the centralized provider is that they have control on the revenue making application. If you think about Google is the acts of the search, and Meta is all this social and so on, right? So they control the revenue, then they can use the revenue to control the compute, the GPU. They can build data center. They can also hire the best talents, and then they get the better recipes of the AI because of they have the talents, and then so on and so forth. They can continue to accumulate this effect. So they go into a fine wheel that they can always stay on top of the game. Even with disruptions like DeepSeek, I'm sure they will catch up pretty quickly in like a few months to still stay on top of the game because of all of the accumulated resources and the revenue they have to make this happen. For DeepSeek, I'm actually a little bit worried that if they're giving out people to use DeepSeek for free or with a very low cost, they're gonna continue to lose money. It's not sustainable, even though this is a very good model. So that, again, that's why any of these companies dare to do free launch for people, they have to have a very solid revenue foundation. That's why the central players are the major players of AI are sort of being stable over there. And now if you want to say, hey, I want to force Google or Meta to give out the user data and then to be more transparent on how the data was used in AI, this is really hard to be done in a bottom-up manner. So our best bet is probably a top-down approach, that there's going to be regulations, legislation to them. And that sort of seems to happen in the Biden kind of TAM, but I don't think this is still going to be the case with Trump over. Seems like the direction is not going to be more strictly compliant on the whole AI landscape, right? So I think this is just giving the big companies more rooms to breathe. Versus we think that a way to break this down is really to reconstruct the market, right? You have to educate people about the importance of their personal data and then making sure they don't upload and leak their most valuable data assets to this provider. Rather, they use, for example, in Sahara platform, you can use what we call a vault, which is basically a sort of data container in your local devices, like your laptop, that can have the encryptions and all these mechanisms protect your data. And you use the vault to communicate with the TE environment. So everything is end-to-end protected, right? So data sent to the TE environment do the AI computation, which is also protected. That way, you can really have a more guaranteed data security and user privacy. And then you can claim your ownership on these things, right? Otherwise, ownership doesn't make sense.
How do you see that playing out?
Well, I mean, so I mean, there's a number of different angles here. One is that fractionalization opens up new markets for ownership for assets that previously could only be owned by a very small group of people, and creates sort of, much bigger, more liquid markets for people that might want to own a piece of that. But it also turns commerce, what we're doing is kind of like commerce and loyalty combined. So, you're buying things, but it's not just a straight transaction. You're buying, or you can either buy parts of this asset, or you can do things to earn parts of the asset, and buying and earning and all of these things are all kind of combined into some sort of a gamified experience. And that's what we sort of see as the future of commerce is becoming less transactional and more about this kind of programmable loyalty commerce. So more of an experience that people will kind of get into and have these deeper, more engaging experiences with brands and these sort of luxury items behind them. So yeah, I mean, we're already working with a number of other brands on different but similar concepts, because basically the technology that we've built is a toolkit. I mean, the Dolce Lauren is one, I think, quite powerful example of what you can do, but it's a toolkit. You could build many different things, combining, you know, crypto, loyalty, commerce, ownership, AI, and all of these different things together. Yeah.
Got it. So I saw some stuff. So I had some stuff. So I've had interviews in the past with fashion creators, fashion designers, artists, especially during the NFT days. And some of them built luxury brands, luxury items, and they had successful NFTs. But with the AI agents added on top of the NFTs, how will that be a revolution, a forward-looking revolution to Web3 and be the next step up for the adoption of this industry?
Yeah, well, I mean, if you think, I mean, as this agent evolves, what you have here is a personality, a character that, brands previously had talked about brand personality, is it? But what you have here is an actual engaging personality. You have assets, you have an engaging personality, you have commerce, you have loyalty, you have all of these. It's bringing these things alive. If you think about sort of the evolution of the relationship between a consumer and these luxury brands, and you rewind like maybe 20 years ago, it was all very much the brand communicating to their customers, and then the customers would buy this fixed thing. But we've seen over the last certainly 10 years more of a brand recognition of the need for community where things are more interactive but still quite static, right? Still quite interactive, but scripted. But moving forward, these things can be dynamic and so if you've got this AI agent that's the embodiment of a brand or an embodiment of a class of product or whatever, and is able to make decisions on, okay, you're, for example, in later chapters, and we're slowly layering this sort of complexity, but in later chapters, the agent itself is going to be able to reward people that support it in its mission by giving tokens of itself that have real value. Because at the end of all of this, we're going to have this auction of the asset. And of course, as the asset is, the value of these assets is often linked to their sort of provenance and history, and so it's creating its own hype, if you like.
And ladies and gentlemen, that was my compilation for Crypto Hipsters Curtain Calls, episode 8, The Ghost in You, seeing yourself through the eyes of decentralized AI. So let me ask you this. Let me know your thoughts. How do you see yourself as through the eyes of decentralized AI? What do you think is going to be possible that hasn't been possible yet? Where do you see yourself in this new AI economy? If you don't see yourself in it yet, what steps can you do? What are your thoughts on it? What's holding you back? All my episodes are available on Spotify, Apple, anywhere you listen to your favorite podcasts. This was episode 8. I'll see you next time. Enjoy.